Hello and welcome to another very interesting episode of Indian Oil Durand Talks. As you can see, we have European football pundit, none other than 𝐂𝐨𝐨𝐩𝐞𝐫. He was there with us in the last show as well, and we discussed a lot of things about the first qualifier stage between Mohammedan Sporting and Kerala Blasters. Yesterday, we have seen a cracker of a game, and trust me, Andy, I'm just coming out from the stadium. It was one of the best games I've seen in recent times in Indian football, as Chennai FC are now knocked out of the competition after a fantastic fight with Mumbai City FC, won it by 5-3 at the Vivekananda Yuva Bharati Cricket today in the evening. Welcome to the show. And how do you see the matchup now? Firstly, the first quarterfinal, it would be Mohammedan Sporting who would be up against Mumbai City. How do you think about that lineup?
Yeah, it's really taking shape now, isn't it? Some big performances, and I know we spoke last time we were on, previewing the kind of Odisha-Bengaluru game in terms of that being a big heavyweight contest, which clearly it proved to be. And again tonight, two games in a row going into extra time. Big performances, big moments in games, lots of decisions, teams hitting the post, all things going different ways. And then obviously the late goals in games as well to be able to finish games off. So before they go into penalties. So yeah, a very exciting competition and times. And obviously that's what happens in knockout tournament football. People are not sitting back; they're going for every opportunity to win games. So yeah, it'll be a big matchup as they're going through into the semi-finals now.
Well, talking about yesterday's game, I'm sure you've watched the game between Odisha FC, who were at some point of stage in this particular competition, seemed to be one of the contenders of this Indian Oil Durand Cup. I mean, with the way Bengaluru FC scored and played, especially in the extra time, it shows the character of the team, isn't it? And Roy Krishna, boy, oh boy, 121st minute, he rose to the occasion, slammed that winner. It shows about the character of the team, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we got it pretty spot on in terms of the matchup of the game and where the details are going to be, more around equal possession, around the outside of them, centre-backs getting into wide areas, which obviously they were able to do. Odisha were able to do a lot. Obviously, a red card as well. And then set-piece goals. We mentioned about set-piece goals would be key. And then you come up, obviously, with the last strike of the game and an absolute gem to fit in to win any cup tie. So no, very obviously tight and fine margins between games, which you knew it would be, and we'd obviously previewed previously, and it was right to the wire, and what a way to finish a game.
Well, coming back about today's game, I mean, what a contest! Two fantastic sides of the Hero Indian Super League, locked horns with each other. Game, I mean, goals after goals. I mean, it was the first half belonged to Mumbai City FC. Second half, impact changes by the Chennai FC coach. He brought in Ninthoi. He changed the complexion of the game. Still, Mumbai City got the lead, and then 89th minute, Jackson Das came in and scored. Extra time, 2 quick goals from Mumbai City FC. 112th minute. Rahim Ali somehow reduced the margin with a fine goal, and then Greg Stewart completed the first hat-trick of the 131st edition of the Durand Cup. What a time! What a contest!
Yeah, and that's what he can do. And obviously, he's done it in ISL previously at Chakraborty. He's able to get these goals and come up with the goods. Obviously, Chennai they've maybe struggled with. Up and down in terms of consistency, but they seem to be building, and there seem to be a lot more structure to how they've been playing in recent games. But obviously, when they come up against the ISL teams, it's been a lot different and a lot stronger in terms of how they've been able to compete. But again, it hasn't been a game where teams have dominated for long periods. So it's interesting that one team has a period of possession and chances and spells, and then the other team come through. Which is what happens in the cup tournaments and these cup competitions where it's knockout and last-ditch challenges and everything's put on the line. Bodies get stretched, distances open up, and then chances become more apparent, which obviously has happened in this game. But yeah, obviously a fascinating way to finish a game, and the heartbreak for Chennai, and obviously who did make changes and obviously looked a bit brighter in the second half when they did.
Well, we were talking about two players. Yesterday, it was Shiva Shakti, one of the finds of this particular competition in terms of Bengaluru FC. His fourth goal he scored. Chante, he scored his seventh one tonight against Chennai FC. A tale of two outstanding youngsters, and good for Indian football, isn't it?
Yeah, we've spoken about this, and obviously I champion it a lot. If we can get young players having impact in games and getting noticed, it's brilliant. It'd like to be for me through the spine of teams, not just in wide areas, but I'd like to see a brilliant domestic number 9 or number 10 or centre half like you have, and not just in wide areas, but for sure they're making big impacts in big moments in games, and obviously now it sets them up full of confidence. It gives her attention to obviously big national team selections and opportunities to play, and then further down the line into an ISL season where I'm sure they'll be wanting to get minutes under the legs every day.
Well, another thing we'd like to talk about, we have seen in the last couple of games, the quarterfinal affairs, even in the first game, 3 goals scored by Mohammedan Sporting, it has been high-scoring affairs. Of course, fans, they do love to watch goals in competitions like this, especially if it comes in terms of knockouts. But how do you see the defense of both the teams, and today and yesterday?
Yeah, I really think that when you look back, and I've done some research on the kind of goals that's been conceded and scored in these tournaments, a lot from set pieces. You'd categorise some as individual errors in terms of really basic stuff that team would really want to step out. Not, team goals as such, but ones where a single player could be deemed at fault in front of goal. But a lot, and we'll talk about it in terms of tomorrow's game, a lot coming from set plays, whether that be quick throw-ins, restarts, corners, and then free kicks in and around the box. A couple of teams have been caught with quick free kicks as well. And it's things that will infuriate coaches. They'll want to be settled. They'll want to be organised. They'll want to build a squad in a tournament that is from the back, and just not just have the attacking threat, but be able to keep the defensive box closed as well. So I'm sure they'll be disappointed with the amount of goals teams are conceding. But obviously, it's entertainment business, and for the fans' point of view and for the neutrals, it's great.
Well, now, before going to tomorrow's preview, Andy, we'll be talking about 𝐀𝐧𝐝𝐲. First hat-trick of the 131st edition of the Indian Oil Durand Cup. Outstanding player. One of the finest foreign players to have come in recent times in Indian football, and what a show tonight. Big player in a big game rose to the occasion.
Yeah, and he's obviously good stock and good pedigree in terms of what he's done before in Europe, in Scotland. So he knows... He's got a good record, good track record, and when he's come over, he's been able to deliver, obviously, at one club especially, but now he'll be looking to do that again. Tidy finishes, goal poacher, able to take chances, able to bring other players into the game, and no doubt, I don't have first-hand knowledge, but I would see the way he kind of plays, that he's a real influencer in terms of training, the dressing room, off the pitch, supporting young players as well. So he seems a good character all in all to have around. But ultimately, his job is to put the ball in the back of the net. And when you score a hat-trick in a great cup competition like this, you'll be enthused, you'll be buzzing with confidence. You'll be wanting to take that through to the next game, where we know that, team selection's big in these tournaments. A lot of teams, they make 4, 5, 6, even 9 changes between matches. And as it kind of filters towards these semi-finals and finals, potentially for these teams, that selection gets harder. It's not necessarily more about spreading minutes across squads anymore. It's competing for places. It's competing for that shirt, for finals, for big moments in games. So I'm sure, the way he's playing now will obviously be etched in the manager's mind and ready for the next game.
And coming back to tomorrow's game, two really good teams, informed sides. Rajasthan United, they have already scripted history, as they have qualified for the knockout stage for the first time ever in the history of their participation in the Indian Oil Durand Cup. But the reigning Hero ISL champions, Hyderabad FC, they have been in some lethal form of late as well in this competition. They'd be up against each other. How do you see this game? Will this be an easy game compared to the standard Hyderabad FC have set for themselves in recent times? Or will there be another upset on the cards in terms of Rajasthan United?
You can never rule it out for sure. I don't think it'll be walkover. I think you obviously get competitive games and you get teams who are, well coached and prepared for the game. They are overwhelming favourites, Hyderabad, the way they play. Obviously, they come in with a lot of high pedigree. Their style of play is really suited to these cup competitions. And what they need to do is continue to be able to break teams down and play through teams like they've been able to do so far. And in that sense, I do fear that if Rajasthan, like they have done, they've been opened up in games, they've had big distances at times between their units, and teams have been able to play through them. I'm sure they're working hard to correct it and be really compact and tight and work hard when they don't have the ball, which potentially could happen for large spells tomorrow. And be really disciplined when they haven't got it, and not see it as a negative tactic, still see it that they can be on the front foot, close the spaces down, try and recover the ball if they can, and then use their counter-attacking and the threats that they've got going forward. But if they leave big gaps, and they have done in the group stages at times, they do get picked off. But when they showed like they did against ATK, Mohun Bagan in the early stages, if they're able to get confidence from early spells and early chances, they can grow into games, and obviously they've shown that they can score. So it depends which team turns up. If they've still got a lot of fight in the legs and they're able to bring it tomorrow. But obviously Hyderabad, they have a lot of possession. They get bodies in the box for fun when they attack. They attack with big numbers. The opposite winger comes in, and two midfielders can arrive in the box as well as strikers. So they do command a big threat when they're attacking, but also they've got that discipline as well as star quality as well, which is obviously why they are, like you say, reigning league champions.
But coming back to Martin, the attacking midfielder of Rajasthan United FC has certainly created an impact in this particular competition alongside 𝐂𝐨𝐨𝐩𝐞𝐫, just 19-year-old youngster. He has been creating and writing headlines for himself over there in different newspapers with his fantastic performance. It started from the ATK Mohun Bagan game. He scored the winner, but 𝐂𝐨𝐨𝐻𝐞𝐫, the way the tournament unfolded, it seemed to be he's a different prodigy altogether.
I think they're great, and we are putting a team obviously who have come through I-League qualifying and got into an I-League against a team who have won the league, the trophy, before they've been league champions. So with respect, Rajasthan, they've got a big test on their hands, but they've done brilliant, and you can see their model. You can see that they've got a young manager and they're developing young players who want to play. And I think it's an absolute credit to how they're set up and their approach. And I know obviously they're setting up with the youth academy now and the program that they're running to develop players. So full credit to how they're set up, and this showcases what they can do, showcases the young talent that they have that's emerging. It puts them on the brilliant stage with shows talking about them, media talking about them, pundits talking about the qualities they have, and they're doing it at the top level against teams and seasoned professionals. So I do think, whereas I'm saying that they have got a difficult challenge on the hand because they're up against the strong side, they've earned it. They've earned the right. It's not a draw. It's not a luck. They've got through a group stage and been pitted against strong teams now, but they've earned the right, and that's what I'm sure the head coach and the staff are saying to them, that they deserve their opportunity to play on a big stage now. And they've obviously got the qualities, and they've been able to take on ISL teams before in this Durand Cup. So go again and give it everything you can.
Well, we were talking about Martin. So how do you see this matchup between Borja and Martin on the heart of the midfield for Hyderabad FC as well as Rajasthan United?
Yeah, but I'm sure obviously he'll come back in. He plays less minutes maybe against once they've qualified, and I know they've rotated players in central midfield area, and I think it's going to be tough for them in there. It's going to be obviously a battle, and what might be the undoing is obviously if he gets loads of time and space on the ball and there's big gaps appear, he'll be able to find his passing range and be able to get through the lines and get into attacking areas quicker. If they keep nice and compact and tight on him, they might be able to disrupt his rhythm, and he might be able to dictate the game as much as clearly he can do in if he's given that space and time.
Well, we have a question from Yahya King. It's not a question, but a request to Andy. Andy, sir, please say any word about Chennai FC performance throughout the season.
I thought they were built. The cup competition, it is what it is. They were building, and I thought they had momentum going into this game. To be fair, and obviously at 2-2 at full time, you're not saying it's a lottery as such, but there's chances that one team going to play for penalties, is one team going to try and kill the tournament off. But if you look obviously after a difficult start in the opening game, and then they've gone on with what they've been able to do, and then you go into this now and you think, can they gain confidence from it? Does the manager know now the settled squad that he needs for the next going into the season ahead? So I'm sure they'll be really disappointed, as you would to exit any cup competition. But the way they've gathered momentum throughout the tournament, I did feel that there was some progress being made in terms of a structure of how they play. But time will tell now whether it's back to the drawing board or they keep going with the players that they've been building with, and they just see it as, they're going into extra time against another strong team, and it's difficult how they've finished.
Well, how big a factor Bart 𝐂𝐨𝐲𝐞𝐫 can be tomorrow? It's a question for many.
Who, sorry?
It's Bartolomeo 𝐂𝐴𝐵𝐲. I'm talking about the number 9 of Hyderabad. Yes.
Yeah. Well, how many minutes is he starting and going to play a full game, or depends how much opportunity he gets. But clearly, when he gets opportunities to play, he's an absolute threat and a handful. And that's probably what I go back to, at the risk of repeating myself, in the way that if they're wide open, it plays into his hands. If there's big gaps and big spaces, then he's going to be able to be more dominant. Whether fully fit, he could terrorise teams and turn and face and run at them. That could be a problem. Or whether you keep things close and you try and snuff out his obviously threat. But yeah, I do think that is obviously one big threat and one player to watch, who's obviously able to be dominant in games, even in a short amount of game time.
Well, as we see the semi-finals lineup, the first semi-final, of course, we have got the two teams. It's Mohammedan Sporting would be up against Mumbai City FC, and the other semi-final, it would be Bengaluru FC will be playing either Rajasthan United or Hyderabad FC. How do you see these matchups?
I think teams will now go in streamlining their squads in terms of who they're going to play, maybe less rest and rotation, and they'll now know. And it's obviously a great opportunity to play your best 11 and your team that you might take through into the season ahead. But saying that, when you get into these moments, it's fine margins. I don't think teams will change tactics too much at this stage. The teams you've mentioned have clearly shown how they play and what style they have. So there'll be big matchups again in massive areas to strike, a front two for Bengaluru, how Mohammedan play in their structure. So I do think it's going to be fascinating in the later stages. And you've got really big moments in games that are going to decide it. Again, I stress the importance of what set pieces are going to be like. Really quick and clever play is being able to unlock teams. But I do feel maybe more at the risk of some of the managers' heart rates, maybe more extra time is looming. I don't doubt that there might be more games going into extra time in the future.
Before we wrap it up, a quick prediction for tomorrow's game.
I really think a Rajasthan early goal would set the cat amongst the pigeons and create absolute havoc in terms of game plans. But I do fear if it's the other way, that Hyderabad will then be able to take a dominant force and take a grip of the game. So, but I do, I always want to see a fight in the underdog, but I do think they have deserved and merit the place on performances. They've had some really good, strong performances. They're obviously well coached and a team that I'm sure can keep progressing. But I do feel that Hyderabad will be too strong in the end.
Yahya King, we'll be finishing this episode of Indian Oil Durand Talks with this particular question from Yahya King. And the question is, so do you think Hyderabad would be a bit careless? He wanted to say a bit relaxed, or rather, they might be wary of the opposition because they'll face They faced easy matches compared to
Yeah.
Rajasthan did in their group stage as they're coming from the group update. How do you see this matchup? He wants to know about it because they are coming from two different groups altogether, two different set of teams they have faced so far. And of course, the ground can be a factor, isn't it? Because they played over there in the hills. Now they had to play in the rain at the Salt Lake Stadium or at the 𝐂𝐨𝐲𝐫𝐲 Durand.
Yeah, and we mentioned this yesterday in terms of on Friday in terms of 𝐂𝐨𝐨𝐩𝐞𝐫 had obviously sailed through the group as well, and we did feel that, and we discussed that maybe the group was slightly maybe easier in one sense in terms of, but they've still got to put away and do the performances. They've obviously come through, without conceding and won the games, and so. But then obviously they've crashed out, so it does happen. You can only play the teams that you put in front of. They've obviously done that very well. They started off strongly, and I think they will do tomorrow. And I think if they will put themselves about early and get a grip of the game, I think they'll be dominant. But I don't think that the factor one could be, and you saw it in the Mumbai City game, is that maybe Rajasthan with the squad they have are not able to sustain the momentum and the energy for long periods in games, mainly due to experience and the team they have at the moment. Obviously, they started off really well in the first game, but obviously the last game against Mumbai City was difficult for them. So I do feel that it does have a factor, but I think ultimately it'll come down to who's stronger on the day.
Thank you so much, Andy. It was lovely talking to you. As always, we discussed about the games which we have already seen in the qualifiers, and of course, the game which will be happening tomorrow, as well as in the possible semi-final lineups as well. Thanks to all the fans who joined this particular show and asked their questions. I couldn't take all the questions because there were many, but of course, I tried to take as many as possible. We'll join tomorrow on the official handles of the Indian Oil Durand Cup to have all the live actions in terms of the updates as well of tomorrow's qualifier 4, where Hyderabad FC will be taking on the dark horse of this tournament, Rajasthan United. Till then, good night, take care, and keep subscribing to the YouTube channel of Durand Cup, as well as keep following all our social media handles. Thanks for joining us.